Hello, my name is Jayesh. Welcome to the session that discusses the new Start Service Request Process Flow capability, which is available from the 21A release of Oracle Utilities Customer Cloud Service. In this session, we will talk about this new feature and how it can impact your business. We will give you an overview of the new capability, followed by more detail to explain how you would use it and the benefits to your business. Then we will walk you through a demonstration. Finally, we will explain what you need to consider when implementing this feature in your business and provide you with some additional resources. Starting service is one of the key moments in the life cycle of a utility customer. In this release, we have introduced the Start Service Request Process Flow capability. This helps call center agents process start service requests efficiently in a consistent manner by guiding them through the common steps and actions for starting service. A consistent process helps minimize errors as all the relevant information can be collected at the appropriate time from the customer that is required to successfully process a start service request. Now, there are two main drivers for reimagining the start service process and providing the new capability. These being to improve usability and to provide additional configurability compared to previous releases. For improved usability, we enhanced the call center agent's experience throughout the entire contact with the customer. This is right from when the customer first calls up and a call center agent identifies and verifies the customer, through to gathering the required information to process a start service request, through to potentially sending them some correspondence to welcome them to the property. To help collect all the required information from the customer in an efficient manner, we consolidated the information to be collected into logical panels or steps within a process flow. This information will then be eventually applied to the relevant customer-related records such as person, account, service agreement, and/or premise records. Also, only the necessary information required to process a start service request is intended to be presented on the panels within a process flow. The second main driver was additional configurability. There are now multiple configuration options and extension points provided with the new capability to support various business requirements. In addition to this, back-end processing associated with starting service may also be extended by an implementation. As mentioned earlier, the new Start Service Request Process Flow capability helps call center agents process self-service requests efficiently in a consistent manner by guiding them through the common steps and actions for starting service. Here are some of the major highlights of the new capability. There is a visual representation at the top of the process flow screen so a call center agent can easily see how far along they are in a process flow. At the end of a process flow, a final summary displays key information related to the start service request. A call center agent can save an in-progress process flow. This is useful if a customer does not have all the required information to proceed further at the initial contact. A saved process can then be resumed at a later stage to continue processing the start service request. Inline customer searching and matching. This allows a call center agent to correctly identify the person requesting the start service to see if they already exist in the solution. If not, then the person will be automatically created as the call center agent progresses through the process flow for the start service request. One or more additional persons may be linked to the account related to the start service request. Their details may also be updated if required. Configurable insights can be surfaced on process flows. These can highlight important information to a call center agent about the premise, service, and/or account. As mentioned earlier, the configurability associated with processing start service requests has been greatly expanded compared to what was available in previous releases. There are a larger number of business controls or configuration options and extension points to support various business requirements. Finally, there is also support for prerequisite processing to meet implementation-specific requirements. An example could be to check that the required deposit has been paid by the customer prior to actually starting service at a premise. Now, the new capability is an alternative option for processing start service requests rather than using the existing start-stop transaction. Now, let's take a look at this feature so you can see how the Start Service Request Process Flow capability can be used by your business. This simulated demonstration is for a new customer who is moving into a property. This customer could be someone who has never received service from the utility, or someone who may have received service in the past but is currently not an active customer. Now, there are two main ways to initiate a process flow for a Start Service request. Either by clicking on the New Customer Start Service hyperlink located on the top right of the Control Central Search Query Portal zone, or alternatively via the Start Service option from the Moving Service dropdown in the Premise Tree dashboard zone. For this simulated demonstration, we are using the New Customer Start Service hyperlink. Now, the Start Service Request Process Flow capability consists of a few key objects. A Start Service Request Process Flow guides a call center agent step by step to capture all the required information from the customer to successfully process a Start Service request. This process flow is based on a specific process flow type. In addition to the process flow type, it also references a specific Start Service Customer Service Request type. This Customer Service Request type contains the various configuration options that controls the behavior of the process flow. The Customer Service Request type also defines the type of parent and child customer service requests to be created to assist in processing a Start Service request. This processing includes the creating and/or updating of person, account, service agreement and/or premise records. Let's now look at a process flow for a Start Service request based on the base product delivered Start Service related process flow type in a bit more detail. The process flow consists of four main steps or panels, these being Move to Premise Address, Customer Identification, Services to Start, and Person and Account Details. The first main step or panel is the Move to Premise Address panel. This is used to search for the premise the new customer is moving into. Here, the call center agent enters sufficient details to search for the premise record. After the search button is clicked, a list of possible matching records is displayed for them to select from. Once the correct premise record is selected, a variety of alerts or insights may be displayed to provide more information about the premise. These alerts or insights fall into three main categories: premise-based alerts or insights, service-based alerts or insights, and account-based alerts or insights. An example of a premise-based alert or insight could be how many accounts have had service at this premise in the last 12 months. An example of a service-based insight or alert could be highlighting information about the service points at the premise. And an account-based alert or insight could highlight key information about the current account at the premise, if it exists. These alerts or insights are configured by an implementation to meet their specific business requirements. This is via insight types and insight groups. Now, after clicking the Next button, the call center agent is navigated to the second main step or panel of the process flow for the Start Service request. This is the Customer Identification panel. This is used to validate the identity of the new customer and then to create any new required person and/or account records if they do not already exist. Now, at the top of most panels, there is a Train User Interface or UI element. This allows the call center agent to easily see how far along they are in the overall process flow. There is also a summary header on most panels. This provides high-level information for the Start Service request, such as the Move to Premise Address, the existing service status, and person and account information. In this example, the person and account portions are currently blank, as these have not yet been identified. These will become populated as we progress through the process flow. Now, because we did not have a person in context when we initiated the process flow for the Start Service request, the person search capability is enabled. This is used to check that the new customer does not already exist in the solution. The reason for this is to prevent the creation of a duplicate person record. Now, the customer's name may be optionally combined with a phone number, email address, and/or primary identifier for the search. An implementation configures whether a phone number and/or email address may be used as search options. An implementation also configures which types of primary identification may be used as search options. In our example, a person record does not exist based on the details provided. However, if there were one or more possible person records that closely match the search criteria, their various details would be displayed on this panel. The call center agent would then use these details to confirm the correct person record to select while they were on the phone with the customer. Next, the process flow determines if an identification verification or credit check needs to be performed for the customer. If it does, the appropriate check may be initiated. An implementation configures if an identification verification or credit check needs to be performed and whether the customer's date of birth is required for this check. If the identification verification or credit check is successful, the process flow will then determine if any of the customer's account, if they exist, are eligible for service. An implementation defines the specific conditions that determine whether any of the customer's existing accounts are eligible for service. In this example, the new customer does not exist in the solution, so there is no need to check for existing accounts. The process flow then determines whether a deposit is required for the customer. For this to occur, an account's customer class is required. In this example, a new account is to be created, so the customer class needs to be selected on the process flow by the call center agent. If an existing eligible account is to be used, the customer class for that account is used. An implementation configures whether a deposit is required, not required, or needs to be assessed based on specific criteria. As mentioned earlier, the customer service request type referenced by the process flow contains the various configuration options that controls the behavior of the process flow. At the end of this panel, when the next button is clicked, the call center agent is navigated to the third main step or panel of the process flow for the start service request. However, before this occurs, the process flow initiates the creation of a new person record if it does not already exist, using the information already captured on the process flow. It also creates an account if an eligible account does not already exist. The third main step or panel is the Services to Start panel. As the name suggests, this is where the call center agent selects the services to start for the premise. Now, in the summary header, the person and account information are now populated as the new customer has been verified and eligible to receive service. After the call center agent populates a start date for a start service request, the panel displays the various services to start across three possible groupings, these being deposit, services and service agreements, and additional service agreements. If a deposit is required, the deposit grouping section is enabled with various information defaulted. This includes a CIS division, deposit service agreement type, deposit amount which is determined by the deposit calculation algorithm for the related deposit class, and deposit installment information. All this defaulted information is based on what is configured on the referenced customer service request type. The second grouping, being the Services and Service Agreements section, displays the eligible services to start at the premise. This is based on the service points at the premise. The base product delivered algorithm, if used, returns the service agreement type for each service point based on the existing or prior service at the premise. Now, if this is going to be the first service for a service point, the initial service agreement type defined on the service point's service point type is returned. Also, the Start Service Agreement checkboxes are usually checked by default. However, the call center agent may uncheck some of these to control which eligible services are not to be started at the premise. Now, in some cases, some of the Start Service Agreement checkboxes may be unchecked by default. This occurs if some services are off at the premise. This is done to replicate the current services at the premise. The call center agent can check these to indicate that these services should indeed be started. Now, for each service to be started, if the service agreement type allows start options, the call center agent selects the appropriate start option to use for the service agreement to be created. By default, and if applicable, the start option for the previous service at the service point is returned. The call center agent can override this default if required. The third grouping, the additional service agreement section, is where the call center agent can specify the additional service agreements to be created as part of processing the start service request. An example would be a service agreement for charitable contributions. Additional service agreements to start can be selected from those defaulted from the reference customer service request type or be added manually. Near the end of this panel, if configured on the reference customer service request type, the call center agent is presented with several predefined premise attributes. Some premise-related attributes may need to be updated as a result of starting service. New and updated information captured on the process flow is later applied to the related premise record. When the next button is clicked, the call center agent is navigated to the fourth main step or panel of the process flow for the start service request. This is the person and account details panel. This is where all other person and account related information is gathered. The various sections on this panel include main person, other persons on account, autopay, other account details, and customer contact. We will now look at each of these in a bit more detail. Let's look at main person first. Here, the call center agent can verify and or capture specific information for some predefined person-related attributes. This may include life support and sensitive load nodes, additional phone numbers, and so on. They may also capture whether the customer wishes to receive their bills via email through the paperless billing option, and also indicate where the mailing address for the customer is obtained from. An implementation configures which predefined attributes may appear here. New and updated information captured on the process flow is later applied to the related person and or account records. The second section on the person and account details panel is related to other persons on account. The call center agent can also add other persons to the account for the start service request. When they click the Add Another Person button, a person search window opens up to allow them to search for the applicable person record. Just like on the customer identification panel, the person's name may be optionally combined with a phone number, email address, and or primary identifier for the search. From the returned list, they can select the applicable person record to be linked to the account. Finally, if configured on the reference customer service request type, the call center agent may be presented with information about other persons already linked to the account. If so, the call center agent can verify and or capture specific information for some predefined person-related attributes. An implementation configures which predefined attributes may appear here. New and updated information captured on the process flow is later applied to the related person and or account records. The call center agent can also remove other persons already linked to the account if requested to by the customer. The third section on the person and account details panel is related to autopay. Here, the call center agent captures whether the customer wishes to pay their bills by automatic payment and then captures the required details. The fourth section on the Person and Account Details panel is related to other account details. Here, the call center agent can verify and/or capture specific information for some additional predefined account attributes. An implementation configures which predefined attributes may appear here. New and updated information captured on the process flow is later applied to the related account record. The final section is the Customer Contact section. This section is enabled if an implementation specifies that a customer contact should be created for the start service request. Here, the call center agent can capture a comment to add to the customer contact record for the start service request. This customer contact may be used to trigger the creation of a letter to send to the customer. When the call center agent clicks the Finish button, they are transferred to the Summary panel. The Summary panel is the end of the process flow for a start service request. Now, as mentioned earlier, along with the process flow, parent and child customer service requests are also created for the start service request. Here is the parent customer service request that was created for a particular start service request. This is based on the reference customer service request type for the process flow. Now, once a process flow is completed, the parent customer service request takes over. Several things then occur. It monitors to check all your configured implementation-specific prerequisites or additional actions have been completed. An example of this could be to make sure the customer has paid the required deposit amount in order to start service. Once these prerequisites or additional actions have been met or completed, a number of things occur. Person and account records are updated with new and updated information captured on the process flow. Pending service agreements are created for the new customer to start service. Any existing service agreements that need to be stopped for the current customer are initiated to be stopped. And a customer contact is created if configured to do so to additionally capture the interaction with the customer. The parent customer service request then waits and monitors the various service agreements related to the premise. This includes monitoring newly created pending service agreements for the new customer for activation. Also monitoring any applicable existing service agreements for the current customer that needed to be stopped have indeed been stopped. Once both of these have occurred, the premise record will be updated with any new and updated information captured on the process flow. The start service request is then considered complete. The creating and/or updating of person, account, service agreement and/or premise records are all performed by specific child customer service requests which are managed by the parent customer service request. For creating, updating person and account records, each record has a corresponding child customer service request, these being customer service request person and customer service request account. Likewise, for creating and updating service agreement and premise records, each record has a corresponding child customer service request, these being customer service request SA and customer service request premise. These child customer service requests can be considered to be staging records that create and/or update various master records related to a customer. For further information about the start service request process, refer to the start service process and request section in the Customer to Meter Business User Guide. In this implementation advice section, we will go through what you need to consider to enable the start service request process flow capability in your business. There are three main tasks that you should complete to enable the new capability. First, you define the possible insights or information to be highlighted on applicable start service request process flow panels. Next, you must configure one or more customer service request types for start service request processing. These contain the business controls or configuration options and extension points to support various business requirements. Process flows and back-end customer service requests use these for processing start service requests. Finally, you must configure an action method for start service request processing. When initiating a start service request, the solution initially creates a process flow and start service customer service request for back-end processing. The process flow type and customer service request type for these are derived from the action method. For further information on these tasks, please see the Implementing Start Service Request Process Flow video for further information. For additional information about the new Start Service Request Process Flow capability, please see the Oracle Utilities Customer Cloud Service Library on Oracle Help Center, which is available at docs.oracle.com. This concludes this presentation. Thank you for watching.